This interview with Joe Sinagra was conducted on the 20th of June 1994 at his property in San Rosa Road, Wanneroo. Would you like to tell me your full name, Joe?
It's Giuseppe Garibaldi Sinagra, better known as Joe, born on the 18th of the 4th, 26.
Who are your parents? Your father?
Vincenzo Sinagra and Maria Grada Sinagra, that was her maiden name, both born in Sicily.
Did they marry in Sicily?
Yes, they were married in Sicily. My father came to Western Australia in 1923 and I believe he worked in Spearwood for the first 12 months and then he came to Wanneroo. Shortly after that, he came and worked for Tony Christopherly, and then shortly after that he went into a partnership with him.
Was he a market gardener?
Yes, they started like they were in a market garden. And
Joe, back in Sinagra, did they garden in Sinagra, do you know?
well, I don't really know what they did. Well, yeah, they would have had some sort of fruit mainly. And other than that, I don't really know what they were doing.
That's right. So he was in partnership with Tony Christopherly.
Yes, then after a couple of years he sent for his wife and two sons, Sam and Jim. And then later on again he purchased some land at Pinjar, which is like 10 k's north of Wanneroo, and started the market garden up there. So from then on.
He went into this garden on his own?
On his own.
In Pinjar, did he?
Yes, on his own at the time. And I had men there helping him establish the garden there.
What other families were out there? Were there?
Oh well, as far as I can remember, there was Saragosanas probably came a bit later. I'm not sure. There was Mazardis there, then they shifted to Kalamunda.
Patara, I think, lived up there, didn't they?
Ferrara.
Patara.
Oh well, yeah, but they lived further in the bush actually. They were sort of east of Pinjar. Oh, there was quite a few families up there at the time.
All migrant families?
Yes, yeah. Although there was an English bloke, I don't know what he was doing. Oh, he would have had a market garden as well. Old Hartman. I think it was Hartman up there. Yeah.
But there was a German bloke, weren't he, over where Zoetis was?
Yeah, further away. Yeah,
he was the German one. I don't know what he used to do.
Because then when he died, one of his dogs half ate him up. Ate him, yeah. Like before people found him, yeah, the dog had eaten some of him there.
This was a German man?
Yeah.
Any of his family still around?
Oh, he was only on his own. Nobody knew anything about him, you know. So, yeah, that was I don't really know who found him because at that time, if you wanted meat or anything, well, you went out and shot a kangaroo. So I think that's how they actually found him. Sort of called in and just to see, and they found him like that.
So, and how many children did your parents have, Joe?
11. What, 3 girls and 8 boys?
Can you remember the name?
Yes. So of course then we all, as we grew up, we were gardeners. We sort of worked the garden.
All your kids worked in the garden with your
Yes,
parents,
we
did you?
worked. Oh well, you can say nearly till the time we were married.
Joe, I've spoke to a lot of people in market gardens. Could you describe a typical working day in a garden for me?
Well, our typical day was we got up with a lantern in the dark. We had cows, so we had to milk the cows, and then we had to walk them about a mile to where we used to garden, because we were away from the garden. We used to bring them over there, or we had horses we took over and we tied them up in the garden so they could feed during the day. Then we walked back home, we got ready for school, and we had to walk another mile and a half to catch the school bus. So we had to be up there early to to be able to get all that done before we caught the school bus. And then of course when we grew older, well, it was still get up early. You sort of did all your chores, and then you went and worked in the garden. And well, if you weren't ploughing or anything like that, well, you were weeding or planting, or we used to water. We had our to water at that time. We used to water in the drains. We had to pump water into drains, and then we had to divert it wherever we wanted it, you see.
So you dug like channels?
Yeah, we had all channels, and actually we had a lot, because we used to send it a fair way around. We had to sort of pump it one way to to get it back to, because it was all you had to make sure it sort of was running down a bit of a slope, otherwise you couldn't water, you see.
And where were you pumping your water from out of?
Well, we had the pump in the middle of the garden, but then we had the channels, some of them were in the bush actually, to be able to get the run down, to be able to run down back into the garden. But that, and that's the way we used to water.
You actually you were pumping groundwater, were you?
Pumping groundwater.
Right.
But that was the colour of beer actually.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, it was brown water. Yeah, no white water.
I remember we used to love drinking it too, as it was coming up out of the pipe.
Yeah.
You used it in the house as well?
Well, you could drink it, yeah.
Oh, I don't know, in the house.
No, we had rainwater
in the house.
in the house. On the side of the house we had a big underground or semi-underground tank, cement tank, which was, it would have been about a 10 by 10 cement tank, and probably 10 foot deep.
Yeah, it's pretty
And that used to be enough to keep us going. Oh, well, actually we had more. We had even tanks on the corners of the house as well, and that used to keep us going through the summer time.
And what about crops? What crops did you grow up there?
Well, mainly in them times it was tomatoes, cabbages, cauliflowers, and that was it. Oh, you had, like for your own use, you planted a few capsicum or eggplants, things like that, all your herbs you planted. But other than that, the main crops were tomatoes and cauliflowers.
And they were seasonal, were they?
Seasonal only, yeah. At that time it was only seasonal. Later on you got sprinklers put in, and well, then you could sort of control your frost, because we used to get a lot of frost up there. Well, you control that, you know, to a certain extent by watering early in the morning. Well, sometimes in the summertime, well, you had the motor going even in the night time. We had to do shifts, you know, to keep your watering up. Otherwise, you couldn't do it.
What, you'd water one section,
Yeah.
and move to another section?
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And how often would you go into market? Going back to those earlier days.
Well, Dad used to go 3 times a week. Well, we first... first he only used to do his own, but then, you know, people moved in alongside. They never had vehicles, so he used to cart their market in as well.
He had a truck, did he?
Yes. Well, actually, the first truck he had was a Fiat, which I think he bought off Mr. Crisafulli.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm pretty sure. Actually, he may have even brought doing mail as well. I suppose he used to pick the mail up as well, you know, like from when he went to the markets. Yeah, I think that he started off with a horse and cart.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I don't know whether it was from Pinjar that he started, or when he was working here with Crisafulli.
What, he picked mail up for other locals, did he?
No, his own produce. But it must have been when he was up at Pinjar, because Crisafulli had a truck here, so, you know, their market would have, produce would have gone, you know, on the one truck. But it could have been mail that he was bringing as well.
Well, it might have been his only means of transport.
Well, it
You know, in
possibly
the beginning,
was.
yeah, like his horse and cart. You know, if they wanted to go anywhere, it would be on horse and cart, wouldn't it?
Probably couldn't afford a truck in there.
Well,
No,
I
not
don't
in the
think he
beginning.
could have, you know, from the word go, because he would have bought land. Because I know he bought Crisafulli's old truck, probably the one they were using first off, and Crisafulli bought a new one, and he must have bought the old one off him, and that would have been his first truck.
And what were the roads like back then, Joe?
Well, the roads would have been, I think some of them were still plank roads or block roads. They had just wooden blocks in the very early stages, because I know later on here, well, I used to drive a truck, and there was still some up here in Dundabar Road, like blocks which they pulled out and put limestone in instead.
Down Arete Avenue, that were all blocks.
Yeah, that would have been all block road.
I remember them.
Yeah.
And Pinjar was
Well,
there.
Pinjar Road would have been either limestone, well, part of it would have been bitumen, but I think that would have been because it was the main Yanchep Road, like that was built, well, that used to be the Yanchep Road. So we were lucky that way that when we did go up to Pinjar, that, you know, there was that road there. Otherwise it would have been probably either a sand track or blocks.
So, how often would your father have to go into market, Joe, with produce?
Well, 3 times a week they used to go,
Right.
because you did your market on either a Sunday, Tuesday or Thursday, and you brought it in on Monday, Wednesday and Friday. And well, the odd time he used to bring some meat home, but normally we wouldn't buy meat. We'd just have what we produced at home. And fishing. We used to go fishing, kangaroo shooting. So that used to supply all our meat.
Where would you do fishing, Joe?
Well, you only caught rockfish mainly them days. You never caught, you caught herring, but normally they were just rock cods and anything, because we never had, good rods and reels then. It was just an old bamboo stick with some of them were only just a hand line that you had. Later on they used to buy just an old reel, and because you never had to cast with them, and they were all right. You only just dropped your line into a sort of a hole, and then you never came home without any fish.
Which beach would you go to?
Burns Beach.
And how long would it take to get from?
Oh well, that used to be a couple of hour trip just about, because you had sort of push your vehicle up a big hill there. It was all sand, and it used to take you a long time to sort of get out there.
You'd have the whole family pushing, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you'd have the whole family get out and push. Well, that was half the fun, you see. You sort of, but I'll admit you had to get up. We used to get up about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, to be able to get out there and by sunrise, you see.
So it was like it was an outing really for the whole
Oh well, it was
family.
a great outing, you see. Yes, and well, you had abalone there that you used to walk all over the abalone, because there was that many on the rocks. I mean, sometimes your feet never touched the rock. There was that many abalone, but now you can't find any. So yeah, that was great then.
And what about food, Joe? Would your mother make her own bread?
Yeah, Mum made her own bread, cheese. We used to pickle some of your vegetables, like capsicum, and you had it in a big barrel there. You sort of put all different stuff in it, and
you were talking about the cooking your mum did.
oh right, yeah. Yeah, we did. Well, we used to help her mix the dough for the bread, and well, she used to make her own yeast to make the bread and make cheese, and all your pickling, butter.
Would you boys help with the cooking as well?
Sorry?
Did the boys help with the cooking as well?
Well, not really with the cooking, but like say any of the heavy work, we used to go out and cut wood, because she had a great big oven she used to bake the bread in, because she used to use a 50-pound bag of flour at a time, and I used to make great big round loaves of bread.
Would she cook inside or?
Oh yes, yeah, no, we had a wood stove, and if there was anything like sometimes we used to bake a small pig, well that used to go into the oven, used to heat that up and cook it in there.
This was it, in your kitchen?
In the kitchen.
Huge oven?
Yes. Oh well, the oven itself was outside, but the door of the oven was built into the wall of the kitchen, so you got into it from the kitchen. But we had a long, big kitchen it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it seated all of us, and you had your sink on one side as well. Then you had the stove, the oven was on one end, but it was a great big long kitchen.
So what, would you put the fuel into your oven from the outside, would you?
No, we used to bring the wood in through the kitchen. Actually, we had a door alongside the oven as well, that you came in from outside. Yeah, and we used to bring the wood in from there. Yeah. And we had the stove on one end, and the oven was on the other end. And
Keep you warm in winter.
well, it would, yeah. Well, that was the only way. Oh, in our lounge room there, well, what should have been the lounge was a great big fireplace, and we always used to light that up.
That was always going in winter time.
Yeah. So, it really wasn't cold because you had, you know, the big fireplace there in, and the kitchen stove, which sort of kept us warm, really.
Did your father build that house?
No, he bought that off, I think a chap by the name of Thomas. They used to have a dairy even before Dad went up there.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a dairy up there. So we bought, he bought that. When he first went up there, he built two tin houses actually. And he used to live in that. But then I suppose when he got a bit more financial, well, he bought, it was a stone house, and which was a bit further away, about a mile away from the other property, and a fair bit of land there.
And what happened to that family, that the Thomas family, was it?
Well, I don't really know whether he probably was a bit old and moved back towards Perth, I think. But because there was no more dairy there at the time, so we just sort of Dad bought the property and used it as a garden land.
And which school did you go to, Joe?
Well, I started off at the state school first, and then the Catholic school opened a couple of years later, so we went to the Catholic school, and I had all my education there, no high school, and from there, once I finished school, well, we never went to work in Perth, so we just sort of carried on market gardening until we got married. And of course then the main family moved down closer here to the corner of Wanneroo Road and Pinjar Road, and three brothers were left up on the old place, and we continued on there for market gardening for a while until we all sort of separated. Two of them, well, Ross he bought a truck and went away, like carting stone, and Jim, I think, went to, he was working for the mill. He went to Villanova's there.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I think he was working there. And of course then I got married, and well, I had all different jobs. Started off with a truck as well, went away wheat carting, and before that I had a couple of years, I think, with the eldest brother in the garage.
Where was the garage?
On the corner of Wanneroo Road, not right on the corner, but down near Amelia Street and Wanneroo Road. Shakespeare Avenue.
Yeah.
Shakespeare, on the corner of Shakespeare Avenue and Wanneroo Road, the garage was.
That was your brother's garage, was it?
Well, it was Dad's garage, but we were running it, and of course then I decided to get into trucks as well. So I went away and left Sam there running the garage, and I went into trucking, and that's been most of my life. Trucking and driving buses and
owning buses.
Oh, and when you were driving, you were still living in Wanneroo, were you?
Yes, well, when I got married, yeah, Camilla was, well, first off, we were living with her parents. No, when I first got married, we were living in the old house up at Pinjar, which, we were there probably a couple of years, I think. Anyway, then, yeah, because I was carting produce, garden produce for some of the neighbours as well. I used to, some were up Pinjar, some down here in Wanneroo, and used to take them into the market. But then we shifted down to here into Wanneroo, and we lived with her parents for a while. And then we built a couple of rooms here in Wanneroo, and we lived there for quite a while. And then we came down here into San Rosa Road.
You bought the property here, did
Yes.
you? Mm.
I bought this, well, one of my brothers had 10 acres here, so we subdivided in half, and I was on half here, built on half, and he kept the other lot, and we're still here.
And tell me about the trucks, Joe. Was it your own? Did you have your own truck?
Well, I brought my own truck, and of course we did, yeah, we went away, I went away wheat carting, and then I came back. Actually, I went into bulldozing after I came back. No, it was, I was driving a truck for Villanovas, first off, wheat carting. The railway, I think it was just during the war that they closed some of the railway lines, and we had to transport some from the country down to the wharves, so they put a truck on the road and I drove it for them. I used to get £5 a load for driving it. Which well, them times it worked out, you know, not too bad, because all I had to do was just drive it. I mean, I never had to buy fuel or tyres or anything like that. And
That was wartime. Were truck drivers, was it like a protected job during the war? You weren't called up if you were...
well, no, we weren't called up during the war. Actually, I don't know whether I would have been old enough.
You
So,
would have been all too small, I think.
well, it must have been,
So then Sam would have been the older one,
yeah, but
and they wouldn't have taken Sam because he was the older one and he had to help drive the truck and things.
yeah, because I think at that time, because during the war, because we were in the market garden, see, a lot of our veggies went to the army. They used to take it, and mainly tomatoes and cabbage, I think they used to take. And then I think Jim had to, he was put in the sawmill. Yeah, that's when he went to work for Villanovas, because that was sort of another industry that they wanted, sort of thing. I don't know how that used to help, but because he was over there, he wasn't called up either.
They were making packing cases.
They were making cases mainly for the vegetables. Yeah, yeah, it was all packing cases for mainly tomatoes. That's all it was, because they used to supply all Wanneroo here, and they even used to send some up to Geraldton.
Did they?
Yeah, they had a big, a lot used to go up to Geraldton. So he was working there, and
And what impact you had the soldiers in Waterloo during the war, didn't you? The troops. What difference did that make to the community?
What, the soldiers being here? Well, they were on. Oh, there was a camp, but that didn't really make any difference, because I don't really know what they were here for. You know, they possibly were only just a sort of place where they rested, or the odd times they used to sort of stop you, you know, when you went through with a vehicle, just checking. But I think most of those were only what they used to call the home guard soldiers. But I know they did have a big camp further up the road here, but that was the Light Horse, and I don't really know whether they were just sort of resting here, or they used to patrol the coastline. So we never really got out during the war. Well, yeah, I wouldn't have been old enough then to. I wasn't driving, I don't think, during the war. So we never, being away up on Pinjar, you never really went out, so you didn't know much, you know, and we just kept to ourselves.
What about social life? Did you?
Well, Saturday night was the only night we used to come down to the pictures, and it was a big thing, so everybody used to come to the pictures.
Or if there was a wedding. A wedding, there was
Yeah.
another night out.
Oh,
that's
well,
all,
yeah.
you know, an odd wedding, you know.
Yeah,
Everybody was invited. And
Yeah. Oh, well, that's right. I mean, if there was a wedding, well, you knew everybody, so everybody was there. But it's different to now. You sort of, only the immediate family were at the wedding breakfast, and then all the others came after, you know, for the dance, because otherwise it would have been too expensive to organise and to run.
And what about the picture shows? Did you come to the picture shows?
Yeah, we came to the pictures, but when we were young, before we could drive, well, we used to go out here, but later on when we drove, the odd time we used to go, you know, into town. Never used to really go to dances. Some of us did, but not too many. I didn't go dancing, and I can't dance to this day. So I even went to dancing school classes, you know, just before I was married. Oh, I can, you know, do some of the old time, but not.
Would you still go to the dance in Wanneroo just for the social thing though?
No, I don't really like dancing.
No.
Camilla does, but of course she's not too good now, so we haven't been dancing for a while. Oh, if we go to a wedding or anything, yeah, we used to dance, but I wouldn't go if I could get out of it.
And do you remember before the church was built? You would have been quite young.
Well, I only remember that the parents were there. Yeah, I remember when they were building it.
Do you?
Yeah. All the old people were there, like they all helped. And well, that's, you know, sort of, that's the only thing I can remember, like that, you know, the old people were there, sort of help, you know, clearing and things like that.
Who actually, did they actually build the church as well, or?
No, well, they had a builder. What was his name there? It was Chris Foley's son-in-law, wasn't it?
Candido.
Candido, I think.
Did he build it?
Well, I think.
I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not really sure who built it, but I do know that all the old people were there. Yeah, yeah. He probably wouldn't have been old enough, I don't think, to be a builder. Yeah, Candido. No, I don't think.
No.
You've seen a lot of changes in market gardening over the
Yes,
years.
yes. Well, as I say, we used to plough our land with a horse and plough, and like some of the other people couldn't do that, see, because the ground was too wet and they had to do it with a shovel. And well, they used to gain in one way because they never had to water by pump, whereas we did have to, but we saved it by not having to dig with a shovel, you see. So we could do more, we could plant more and easier with a horse and plough. And later on we got an old tractor, and then we did a fair bit with the tractor. And then seasonal, we used to plant either a crop of tomatoes or pumpkin in just about in the middle of the Pinjar Lake. But sometimes we used to get caught with a pumpkin because if we got an early rain and the pumpkin weren't quite ready, well then we had to drag them out like in water. See, we used to, well, being like only small kids, we used to put one or two in a bag and we just used to drag them out to where we could load them onto the truck. And that was hard work because we used to plant a lot of pumpkin, and then you put them onto the truck and you brought them up home and you had to unload them again, and we had quite a few truckloads all on a big heap like that, and then you'd sort of sort them out and send them to market. In the meantime, a lot of them would get rotten because you'd get a lot of water would sort of sit on top of the pumpkin and make them go rotten. But we survived. And
Have you seen that lake Pinjar in recent times? Has it changed much, the lake, over the
well,
years?
there's not as much water as there used to be. I have seen it, but no, there's not. You don't get the amount of water anymore because I think because you've got all these bores now, and the Water Authority have got a lot of bores on the east side of it, so you don't get any water runs into it, you see. So it doesn't give it a chance to fill up like it used to. Oh, we used to make a tin canoe and go out onto the lake, mainly to shoot ducks and things like that. We had Jim used to bring in sometimes eggs that he used to find, either duck eggs or swan eggs, and at times there we had tame swans, yeah, and ducks. Although the ducks were hard to keep because when they're small they just run around and you can't really catch hold of them. But the swans were there. Kangaroos, young kangaroos. We had a lot of wild pets, yeah.
I remember the pet kangaroo.
Yeah.
He used to come up with us to the bus stop, and we used to walk us as kids.
we're talking about the school bus, I think, and you.
Well, the driver, yeah, old Murphy, Mr. Murphy used to drive the school bus. Although the first one, in the very early days that we used to go on, was driven by Mr. Dennis, an old Ford T.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Was it a truck or a bus or?
Well, it had, it was the shape of a bus, wooden seats, I think it had.
Be more square, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Oh, nothing like they
These
are today. But, well, we had a better bus here because in South Wanneroo they had horse and cart. Yeah, that's how they used to go to school. Yeah, used to be driven by Mr. Steele. Yeah, their first school bus was horse and, well, I think, it was like a closed-in type of vehicle that they used to come to school in that.
Did you ever get up to mischief on the bus going to school?
Any
mischief on the bus going to school?
No, because I suppose see the bus driver probably give you a clip under the ear, and if you report it to your parents, well then you got a good hiding. And not only that, your headmaster would, you'd have to go up to the headmaster. Yeah, I remember, actually the only time I remember was, there were a couple of kids, but that was in the later years. And you were called up, before the headmaster, and if you had been playing up, well, you got the cane. And you didn't, not too many kids wanted that.
You can recall people getting the cane?
Oh, my word. Yes, we did.
We were speaking about the cane at school, I think.
Oh, the cane. Right, yeah. Well, I never got the cane.
Good.
But I just about did one time. One of my brothers was involved in it, and they must have been playing up on the school bus. Anyway, the headmaster, actually, even though we were at the Catholic school, if anything arose out of incidents on the school bus, we went up to the state school, and he would deal with things like that, see. So I went up and I was just about to get the cane, and I said, well, it wasn't me. I said it was one of my brothers that was involved in it, so I got out of it that way. But he must have been, I don't know whether they were fighting or whatever. And that's the only time that I recall that.
So the children from St Anthony's and from the state school would go on the same bus?
Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah.
Right.
And that's where there was fights, because the state schools used to tease the Catholics.
Yeah, well they
That's
used
what
to.
it was.
Was
They,
it?
they used to tease them, and so of course some of the boys would take it, but some wouldn't. They would,
Yeah.
fight back.
But also we had the two schools had a fight, and it was pretty bad. Like we had Shanghais and what I was talking about before, and I think even one of the state school kids had an air rifle, and and of course there was a big thing over that because a lot of us were involved in it. Anyhow, after that it sort of calmed down, and there was nothing.
How old would you have been then, Joe?
Oh, I suppose maybe 10, 12 probably when the fight broke out.
I suppose kids got swept along with the excitement of it all.
Well, you would, yeah, and I mean you stood up for your rights, because they, as Rosie said, they used to call your names, and because you were Catholic and things like that, and
Was there ever any problem because you were Italian?
well, during the war it was a bit hard.
Okay.
Yeah, you couldn't say anything, and So we just had to really keep quiet, see. Well, some of the parents, like the fathers, well, they were interned.
Were they?
Yeah, some of the Wanneroo people.
Who was interned in Wanneroo?
Well, I know Bellato was, and he only used to live down the road. But I know there were one or two that were interned, yeah.
That must have been very difficult for their families.
Yeah.
It?
So, and I mean, during the war you had...
You weren't allowed to put your radio on, were you, during the war?
well, you weren't supposed to.
have radios or anything, I think. During the
Well,
war.
actually, you weren't supposed to own any, I don't think. But we had a shortwave when we were up at Pinjar, and we used to hear a bit of news. But I mean, you couldn't do anything, and it just more or less. I mean, Dad had relations there, you know, just more or less to see where the fighting was and what was going on, and.
Do you remember when war broke out? You were still quite young.
Well, yeah, because I would have been... Yeah, well, I remember the war years, yes, yeah. And, well, you had coupons, you had, on your truck you had, you know, you had to cover the front of your lights. You only had a slit in the, you know, where you only showed a little bit of light, you know, just to get you going. Yeah, remember that? You had coupons for your petrol. Then later on, seeing we were carting, we got a gas producer put on, and you know, sometimes your petrol didn't.
What's a gas producer?
Well, you made your own. It was like a big container that you put. Well, we had ours on the back of the truck. Seeing we were carting vegetables, well, that was the best place to put it out of your way. And of course, then you had a. That was like a big round steel thing that you put charcoal into, and you lit that up, and that made your gas. And you run your vehicle on.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Then, of course, you had to have a big air cleaner because your charcoal had all fine dust and everything like that before it went into the engine. Otherwise, it would, you know, it would wear your motor out too quick. But you started it off on petrol, and then you lit your gas producer, and with the motor going, you sort of kept the thing lighting. Then eventually, when you had the thing lighting, well, you switched over to gas, and you run entirely on gas. But of course, I forget whether you could go into town and back on a bag of charcoal or whatever. But if you had to fill it up, you just had to sort of fill it up and continue on, which was not too bad. We started making our own charcoal then.
Did you?
Yeah.
How would you make your charcoal?
Well, we used to dig a big hole, and you used to sort of cut all your timber. You used to cut it green, put it into the hole, and then you covered it up with tree branches. Then you had sheets of iron on top of that, and then you put sand on top of that, and you only left I think there was a hole to sort of light it so that it would draw, and one for the smoke to come out. And it didn't light, it just sort of smouldered in there. And when it stopped smoking, you sort of scraped the sand away and moved all the tin, and there was your charcoal.
Did you continue to use charcoal after the war, or was it just...
No, that was just because you really had to.
No.
Well, they wouldn't give you enough fuel, enough petrol to to sort of use your truck, even though you had to go to market, you still wouldn't get enough.
True.
And some days you had to sit in, they had a place there, I forget what they used to call themselves. You had to sit in there and wait till, for them to give you coupons to be able to buy your petrol. And sometimes you sat there nearly all day.
This was in Perth, wasn't it?
Yeah, in Perth, yeah. So that was life during the war. But I mean, not that anyone, would have spoke out, but they didn't really have a good time here. The Greeks would have been in the same situation. And that was it.
And Joe, when you had a truck later, did you do cartage work around Wanneroo when you had a truck?
Well, when while I was in the garden, we did a lot of carting, vegetables. But then when I got married and bought my own truck, well then I was, I was carting here in Wanneroo, mainly limestone I worked for the Shire for a while.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, we used to cart limestone for the roads.
Where would you get your limestone?
Well, there was quarries up in Wanneroo here. And then of course for the roads too, the Shire had their own machine after a while. Used to dig the stone up, and we used to just cart it for the roads. Now I did a lot for the Wanneroo Shire. I actually had a little bulldozer in there when they first started the rubbish tip up at Pinjar.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I used to push the rubbish, and here in Warwick Road I had one down there.
There was a rubbish tip in Warwick Road.
There used to be in Warwick Road in Hudson Park was actually a rubbish tip. Yeah, that was a rubbish tip there. So, and then of course they got their own machines, but we had to leave Pinjar because on account of the water table, they didn't want to, all that rubbish to sort of go into the water, and so they stopped that.
Where does the rubbish go now?
Sorry?
Where does the rubbish go now?
Well, they've got one here in Marmion Avenue. What do they call it? Tamala Park or something like that?
Yeah, something like that, I think. I haven't been there.
But I think that's got a stone floor or something like that, or they sealed it, but that's out near the coast, so even if it went down to the water, I don't think it would worry, because your water all runs out to the coast anyway, all your underground water. So I can't see that being any problem there.
Did you ever have any contact with the lime kilns that were operating up there, Joe, in North
Well, yeah, I did a bit of limestone carting as well. But that was carting into Perth mainly. Just your big blocks of stone. It's a lot different now. They saw them into square blocks. But before, you could get a rock that probably weighed 2 tonne or more, and they used to load it onto your truck. As long as the machine could lift it, they used to put it onto your truck, and then you took it away onto a block, and of course then the stonemasons used to cut it up to what they wanted it, you see.
What about the lime kilns? The lime burning?
I didn't really have much to do with, not with the lime kilns. I did have, I didn't like that because your lime burns your skin. But I did do, probably about 6 weeks. The chap that used to do it went on holidays, and he asked me if I would do it. I actually used to cart some wood into this particular lime kiln, and which was Wesco's lime kiln in Wesco Road, and I used to cart the wood in to burn the lime. Actually, that was my first. Come to think of it, that was my first truck that I bought, and I did that sort of work. Yeah, I was carting wood into the lime kilns. But to cart the lime itself, I only did that because the other chap went away on holidays, and I was always glad when he came back because it used to eat into your fingers, and you could never wash it off. It was sort of, and your skin was always dry, and it just used to burn into it. And your clothes, you couldn't put your clothes on the second time because that was all, the dust was that fine. And the worst was if you were delivering lime, which you had in bags at the time, if it rained, well, that could catch on fire because the lime used to come in lumps. As the stone was put into the kiln, well, the lime used to come back as that in a lump.
How did they do it?
Well, they used to. They had 2 or 3 little archways in the front of the lime kiln. A big, I suppose it would be 20 foot high. It was built into the side of a hill, and they used to throw all the wood and stone from the top of it, and they used to put a layer of wood, then they'd put a layer of stone, and then another layer of wood, and right to the top. And then I don't know whether they still do that now, but they used to get coke, which was from the gasworks, and they used to mix some of that in as well, to burn. And they just then they'd set fire to it, and through these archways, if by any chance it didn't burn it enough, well, they used to keep feeding wood through the front there to just keep the thing going till it was good lime.
And what would the end product look like after the burning?
Well, it just finished up still in lumps.
Yeah.
Some was fine because some of it would burn, sort of probably get too hot and burn, and that used to be what they used to call slack lime. That wasn't any good for building, but it was good for gardens. So you could go and buy that, or probably take it away them days, in the early days, and you could put it on your land for your vegetables, you see, which did a bit of good. But the lumpy one they used to put into bags, and that was for your building. And to get that into, you had to sort of wet that and make it into a paste, sort of a watery paste. Then they used to mix it with their cement, and that used to help, in the brickwork and things like that.
So you've had a few experiences.
Well, I've done a lot of things, yes, in my time.
What about the buses you have?
Well, the buses, the first one I bought was, I did school from Lancelin to Balcatta High, I used to, every day.
What year was that? Can you remember?
Um,
Mr. P. No.
69, 1969. I actually bought the bus to start a bus service from Lancelin to Perth. I got a permit from the Transport Commission, just off, I just thought, oh, well, I'll just want to start a bus service. And while I was up there, I think I bought it in May 69, a contract came up for carting school children from Lancelin to Perth. So I put in for it, and I was lucky enough to get it. And I did that, I think, for 4.5 years. Then we went off. What did I do? They sort of, the kids only got down to about 10 or 11 or less, and they decided to send some of them to Gin and I think another place. So that run finished. Anyway, I think 18 months later I bought 2 other runs here locally, and we did that till a few years ago.
You're still involved with buses? You still got buses on your
No, well, the chap that bought mine still keeps them here because he hasn't got room
Right.
where he lives. But in the meantime, I had bought one that I used to do, that I took over a run from Yanchep to Perth, which I used to do daily, and I kept that going for, I think, about 2 or 3 years. And then a chap wanted to buy the business, and well, actually he wanted to buy the buses, and then in the meantime the Transperth there, they started a run up there, so I was sort of pushed out, and I sold the buses to a chap, and he was in the tourist business, so he was doing tour runs, even though I did a couple up to Darwin while I had them.
Did you?
Yeah, I did a couple of runs up there. I did one to Port Hedland. Yeah, carrying like a tourist group. Yeah. So I have actually been around, and and we've actually seen a fair bit of Western Australia. I mean, when I was on the road carting wheat for Villanovas, I mean, we only first married, and Camilla was down there with me, and she was all over the place too with me.
When you say you were carting wheat for the Villanovas, did they just have trucks carting, or were they?
No, they had a contract during. I don't know why they closed the railways. Whether there was a strike, it must have been a strike on, and apparently there was ships coming in to load this wheat, and they couldn't get the wheat from the bins in the country down to the wharf, so they put on trucks. The government put on all these trucks, and anybody that had a truck had it on wheat carting, because at that time, well, it would have been, when did I get married? 49. Yeah, well, in the 50s there were no big trucks here in Perth, so everybody that had a 5-ton truck or 3-ton truck, well, they were carting wheat more or less, and we used to cart from all over the place. we used to go, down south. We carted into Geraldton as well. And,
You always came back to Wanneroo though.
oh yeah, yeah. Oh, well this, you know, this was your hometown, so you came back here.
Your parents did very well in Wanneroo, didn't they?
Well, yeah, Dad. Well, see, in them days, we all worked as a family, and it's just, I mean, the two eldest were, what? Yeah, as you got married, you sort of went away, but, and you sort of got into something else. But while we were all living at home, I mean, we all worked. Well, I'll admit we were possibly the eldest 3 or 4 of the boys. Well, I mean the girls as well, but the girls did the housework, and I mean, I suppose they were in the garden there, you know, when they were needed, and but everything went, you know, into one bin, you could say, you know, all the money that was earned. But if you wanted money, well, you know, you sort of, you know, it was given to you, and you sort of bought what you wanted.
Have you got any funny stories from those early days? Any?
Well, not really.
What about
The only time I remember, well, it probably wasn't funny either, because we got a good hiding out of it. But I remember a couple of us went away shooting birds on a Sunday, see? Oh, we used to go miles too, you know, just walk. Well, that's the only free time we had, so he didn't worry. As long as there was no work to be done, Dad didn't really worry much. And if he knew we were out, you know, after birds, well, it didn't sort of worry. But this particular time, I think only 2 of us, or it might have been 3, went out, but we didn't know the younger brother followed us, you see, which was Johnny.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Jim, myself and Ross. So we went out, we didn't notice him following us. Anyhow, when we came back it was late. Well, the sun had set, or, you know, near enough. And Johnny hadn't come home, see? So Dad didn't say anything. He just said, oh, you know, you go out and look for him, and anyhow, went out and, yeah, we found him. Anyhow, when we got home, he was waiting with a strap on, did we copper hide? Anyhow, from there, we never had dinner. He sent us out into the garden. He said, you go out, when I call you, he said, you come back. Anyhow, we were lucky that night we had visitors, and the visitors covered, and we weren't really able enough to go home even at that time. Yeah, that was, yeah, we got a good hide that time. And we weren't to blame either.
What about you, Rosie, as one of the younger sisters? Can you remember the mischief they got up to?
Well, not really, you know, because I was one of the youngest and they were all older, so I don't really remember them, you know, getting into any mischief or anything. You know, because they would have all been grown up, eh, you know.
Yeah, but even the boys, I mean, we used to look after the younger children. We were always, because I mean, Mum had always either washing or cooking or, you know, things to do, and I mean, we all helped.
Did your mum used to help in the garden as well?
Oh, very seldom, because if there was tomatoes and things to pack, I mean, we used to do the packing and I mean the picking, and Mum and Dad would, you know, be in the shed there, either sorting out or packing your tomatoes, because sometimes we had quite a few, and you know, to pick and pack, and they used to sort them all out. It's not like today, they put them all in a box loose, and they were all packed, and then you had to nail them. They used to put all the half-ripe, good-looking tomatoes on the top, and you know, things like that. So you sort of, well, that's the way it was. So you sort of packed your tomatoes like that. But the buyers in the markets, once they got to know who the grower was, didn't really worry, because they knew you had good tomatoes, you see. So as long as they knew the name, well, they just sort of, yeah. Well, you graded them into, I think about three grades. You had your top grade, number one,
and the seconds.
the seconds, which were smaller tomatoes, and the odd time, if they were deer, well, even the ones that had holes, grub holes in them, they were packed into a separate box and sold off. And of course then you had your sauce factories. They come into the thing, and they took everything, you know, whether they had grub holes or, as long as they were ripe, you just took them in, and they made sauce with them. So whether you had worms or, you know, they just all went in, you know, that was what they did.
That's why your tomato sauce tastes so nice.
The problem is to make your own sauces.